Brooke Shabbat Yam, brothers and sisters, Hebrews in Jamaica, the Caribbeans to the west, to the four corners of the earth scattered greetings. This Shabbat lesson we're going to tackle it. Were there three wise men? Were there three wise men, brothers and sisters? Did the scriptures mention specifically there are three wise men that came and visit Yahusha HaMashiach, the king of Israel, ethnic Israel? Brothers and sisters, so we're going to examine the scriptures and then we're going to go into some archaeological data and proof of such and other possible links and directive of where these magi's are, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 12. Brothers and sisters, so take a look at the screen. We're gonna take it from Matthew chapter 2 all the way to the end. Matthew 2 to the end, right? And when Yahusha was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem. So, brothers and sisters, right off the bat, the scripture only says wise men. It did not list how many wise men it were. It just said wise men. There came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born king of Judeans? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. So, in the scriptures, you have two types of star. One star represents Hashatan and another star represents Yahusha. Right? So, like I said, brothers and sisters, there's two types of star. Right? Hashatan is referred to as a star also, and Yahusha HaMashiach is represented as a star. So in Revelation 22 and 16, Yahusha is referred to as a bright and morning star. Not just a morning star, but a bright and morning star. So the bright and morning star outshine all stars. Right? And Hashatan is mentioned as a morning star. So Hashatan is mentioned as a star in the Bible. The name Lucifer and its association with Satan comes from a Latin translation of Isaiah 14 and 12, where the original Hebrew refers to a morning star or shining one. In ancient times, the idea of a morning star was one of a bright star that outshines others. Right? Satan is also referred to as a fiery red dragon whose tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to earth. The Hebrew word used for star is Helel and means light bearer or shining one. So you see the different and vast contrast of the both stars. Yahusha is mentioned as a bright and morning star. Lucifer is mentioned as just a morning star, a shining one. Right? Okay, brothers, so let's continue. Right, so we have a definition and contrast of the two stars. Right? Hence, there's two sides to the story, even possible three. Basically, there's two sides to the story. Brothers and sisters. So saying verse 2, saying, where is he that is born king of the Judeans? For we have seen his star in the east and are come to worship him. When Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Mashiach should be born. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophets, and thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, art not the least among the princes of Judea. For out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he privily called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. Verse 8. and sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, Go, answer diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring me word again that I may come and worship him also. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly great joy. Verse 11. When they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasure, they present unto him gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And being warned of Eliyahu in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they depart into their own country another way. 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel Yahuwah appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother, and flee into Mizraim, Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. When he arose, he took the young child and his mother by night, and departed into Mizraim, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of Yahuwah by the prophet, saying, Out of Mizraim have I called my son. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and set forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coasts thereof, from 2 years old under, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. So for however long he diligently inquire of the wise men, that's how many children he killed. And again, the scripture mentioned wise men. It didn't say the amount of wise men, it's just wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken of Jeremiah, who the prophet, saying, In Ramah was their voice heard, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not. But then Herod was dead. Verse 19. When Herod was dead, when Herod was dead, behold, an angel of Yahuwah appeared in a dream to Joseph in Mizraim, saying, Arise and take the young child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. And he arose and took the young child and his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea in the room of his father's Herod, he was afraid to go thither. Notwithstanding, being warned of Eliyahu in a dream, he turned aside into the parts of the Galilee, and he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, he shall be called a Nazarene, brothers and sisters. Right? So the question you need to ask, brothers and sisters, were there 3 wise men? That's the title of my video. Were there 3 wise men, brothers and sisters? Let's look into the evidence. There are perhaps no, as you can see again, brothers, the evidence is in the scriptures. We just read the scripture just right now in Matthew, and in Matthew it only state wise men. It did not list how many wise men it were. It just says wise men. So we're gonna look on where the number 3 comes from, and why is it associated to the 3. Associated to the wise men. So there are perhaps no more enigmatic people in the New Testament than the Magi, who came bearing gifts to the Mashiach child. Who were they? Brothers and sisters, where were they from? Where were they from? Matthew records their visit to honor to the newborn king of the Judeans. Now after Yahusha was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he who has been born king of the Judeans? So for we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him. We just read that in Matthew 2:1. Right, brothers and sisters? So what are the clues in the biblical text? In order to identify the Magi, and that word Magi is short for magic, right? Magi, magic, magician. Huh? In order to identify the Magi, we need to first strip away the traditions and legends that become associated with them much later in history. For example, the Magi are unnamed in Matthew Gospel disorder. Yet, their traditional names El Malchoa, Caspar, and Belteshazzar. Amarinian infancy gospel dated to around AD 500, which gives them the names Melkan, king of Persia, Gaspar, king of India, and Balthazar, king of Arabia. So the idea that they were Chinese mystics comes from an 18th century Syriac manuscript in which the Magi come from the far off land of Sher, possibly China. Few scholars, however, give any credence to the theory of the Magi being Chinese mystics, likely because its primary source is of such late date and the fact that there are better candidates. Right? If you look at your screen, you will see a papyrus P77 dates to the 2nd or 3rd century and is among the earliest surviving copies of Matthew's Gospel. This photo is from Wikimedia Commons public domain. Right? It's on the screen. Leaving aside tradition and legends, I believe the earliest written description of the Magi is the most accurate. Unlikely accounts that were written hundreds of years later, the Gospel of Matthew was written in the 1st century, likely in the late AD 50 or early 60. His description of the Magi, right? York or Magos, York in Greek, Magos, provides 3 clues that might help us with the identity. They were from the east, Matthew 2 and 1. They came to pay homage to a new king after seeing a star, Matthew 2 and 2. And we went over that just now in the beginning of the lesson. This is just a breakdown so you could better understand thereof. They brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, Matthew 2 and 11. I would know that nowhere in the biblical text does it state the number of Magi who came, nor that they came from a great distance, nor that they were kings. So what are the usual suspects, brothers and sisters? Right? The various groups are usually suggested to identify the enigmatic Magi. Some believe they were Babylonian astrologers, others that they were Persian priests, perhaps Zoroastrians, or even Chinese mystics. This is usually based on clues in ancient extra-biblical texts. And if you look at the screen, brothers and sisters, you will see imagery and astronomy tablet from Babylonia, currently housed in the Louvre Museum. Photo taken by Todd Bolden, biblicalplace.com. To be clear, there were no Babylonian or Persian empires at the time of the Mashiach's birth. Let me repeat. To be clear, there were no Babylonian or Persian empire at the time of Mashiach's birth. The Seleucids had taken over the area once ruled by the Babylonians and Persians, and the Seleucids in turn had given way to the Parthian Empire. Still, could the Magi have been part of a group of astrologers who traced their training back to the Babylonian astrologers of old? Could they have been priests who still practice a version of Persian religion? Is there a better group to identify the Magi with? So you see, I'll tell you about religion, how religion incorporates pagan rituals and celebrities and celebration of pagan gods and idols and imagery. It's the same thing today in modern time with religion. Yes, you know what I mean? They incorporate their pagan idealistic and ideas into their practice of so-called worship, and gift wrapped it as they worshiping the true and living Elohim of the Bible, the Elio Israel, Yahuwah and his holy son Yahusha, Yahusha Mashiach. It's farthest from the truth. That's how the scripture say they praise me with their mouth, but their hearts are far from me. And the reason their hearts are far from him is because they take a religion as their sole guide to the Mashiach. And the Mashiach did not give ethnic Israel religion. It gives us laws, commandments, and statutes. Huh? So, Magi from the East in ancient sources, right? We're looking at the ancient sources to see if they come from the East, but the scripture said so. So let's look at the Magi from the East in ancient sources. In the first century, when Matthew was writing his Bezorah Gospel, what might the average person living in Judea or Galilee thought of when they read of the Magi? And look at how this Greek word is used in ancient sources is helpful. Magi as a tribe. Magi as a tribe. Herodotus records that the Magi were one of the ancient Median tribes. The Yahusha then united the Median nation by itself and ruled it. The Median tribes are these: the Bozai, the Paratasini, the Shoktahatis, the Arizanti, the Budi, the Magi. Their tribes are this many. In the Bershington inscription, King Darius claims that a man from the Magi tribe named Guamata pretended to be Semerdis, the brother of King Cambyses, and took the throne afterwards. There was one man, a Magian, Guamata by name. He rose up from Pishuvada. He thus deceived the people, saying, I am Bardia, the son of Cyrus, brother of Cambyses. Afterwards all the people became estranged from Cambyses and went over to him, both Persia and Media and the other provinces. He seized the kingdom. B. Magi as Persian priests. The word Magi could also refer to a class of Persian priests who were highly revered by the kings of Persia. Xenophon knows that Cyrus the Great would use these Magi to offer sacrifice to the gods before his battle. But though they had got to the camp, the pickets, acting on the orders of Cyrus, would not let them in till dawn. With the first faint gleam of morning, Cyrus summoned the Persian priests, who were called magician or magician. That's where the word comes from. Magician comes from the word magians. Magians. And bade them choose the offering due to the gods for the blessing they had vouchsafed. Right? So you could see the similarities with the word magi or magician or magician. Right? Magicians. So thus he took pains to show that he was the more assiduous in his service to the gods, the higher his fortunes rose. It was at this time that the Persian priests, the magicians, were first established as an order, and always at break of day Cyrus chanted a hymn and sacrificed to such of the gods as they might name, and the ordinances he established service to this day at the court of the reigning king. These were the first matters in which the Persians set themselves to copy their prince, feeling their own fortune would be the higher if they did reverence to the gods, following the man who was fortune's favorite and their own monarch at the time. No doubt they thought they would please Cyrus by this. The famous audience relief from Persepolis depicts King Darius on the throne, the crown prince Xerxes standing behind him, and the Magi standing right behind Xerxes. You can see that on your screen right now. So the audience relief from the church of Persepolis depicts from right to left King Darius the first on the throne, the crown prince Xerxes standing behind him, followed by a Magi an armor bearer and guards. Photo by A. Davy. Wikimedia Commons CC by 2.0. The Jewish philosopher Philo, who wrote earlier in the 1st century, recorded that among the Persians there is the body of the Magi, who, investigating the works of nature for the purpose of becoming acquainted with the truth, do at their leisure become initiated themselves and initiate others in the divine virtues by very clear explanations. Right? Magi as magicians. By the 1st century, the word Magi had taken on a more general meaning, referring to people who had special knowledge in magical arts. In Acts 13:6-8, Paul and Barnabas encountered a Magi, magician, when they had gone through the whole island as far as Paphos. They came upon a certain magician, Magos, a Jewish false prophet named Bar Jesus. Go figure, right? Similarly, Philip, Peter, and John encountered a Magi magician named Simon in Samaria who practiced magic in Acts 8 and 9. Right? It is interesting that in the Septuagint Greek translation of Daniel, the magician in Nebuchadnezzar's courts are called Magi as well. You could read that in Daniel 1:22 and 2 and 27. Some have even proposed that there may have been a group of astrologers or astronomers whose ancient Babylonian training was passed down from one generation to another. Perhaps they were familiar with Daniel's prophecy of the 70 weeks. You could see it in Daniel 9:24-27, and knew the time of the Messiah's birth close, although is speculation. Right? So let's look at summarizing the ancient sources. In the light of the evidence above, many scholars believe that the Magi came from the area of ancient Babylon and Persia under Parthian control when the Mashiach was born, which would satisfy the biblical criteria that they came from the east in Matthew 2 and 1. Perhaps those from the tribe of Magi were the first to become the caste of Persian priests that were so highly valued by the king. Given their fixation on the stars, some attempt to make a connection between the Magi and early groups of the astronomers and astrologers from Babylon. Right? If you take a look at the screen, you will see a coin of the Persian king Phraates VI, photos, classical numismatic group, Wikimedia Commons CC by SA 3.0. Actuality Barons is King Phraates IV, right? King Phraates IV. However, given that the word Magi had assumed a more general meaning by the 1st century, it could also refer to wise men in general. Those with special knowledge, particularly in the magic. Thus, it may, in many modern English translations, the word Magi is simply translated wise men. This is in keeping with their apparent role in the courts of the ancient kings, particularly in Babylon or Persia. The Magi may have been a priestly caste who dabbled in astrology and magical arts and were revered for their knowledge, often consulted by the kings of old. Perhaps the Parthian king Phraates IV, circa 37-2 BC, who was likely ruling at the time of the Mashiach's birth, also used Magi, wise men, in this way, and sent them to honor to the newborn king when informed of the significant sign in the heavens. What are the other candidates, brothers and sisters? I believe other groups deserve consideration. Perhaps the Magi were Nabatean, wise men from the course of King Aretas IV, circa 9 BC AD 40. Right, let's look at this evidence. We already know that, the the direction of where the Magi came from the east. So as we mentioned, right, the Magi came from the areas of ancient Babylon and Persia under Parthian control when Christ was born. So we know that's, east towards Jerusalem, right? So again, other candidates, I believe, other groups deserve consideration. Perhaps the Magi were Nabatean wise men from the courts of King Aretas the fourth, circa 9 BC, AD 40. If you look at the map, take a look at the screen, you will see a map of the first century empires. You will see the Roman Empire, you see Jerusalem, you see Parthian Empire, you see Nabatean Kingdom coming east to Jerusalem. You see, right? And you can see a map of major empires in the first century. Both the Parthian Empire and the Nabatean Kingdom lay to the east of Jerusalem. You see that? And this image is Gabacool, Wikimedia Commons CC by 3.0, adapted by Brian Windle. The Kingdom of Nabatea was an independent empire whose territory includes parts of modern southern Syria, Jordan, the Negev of Israel, the Sinai portion of the eastern desert of Mizraim, Egypt, and the northwest region of Saudi Arabia. This would indeed satisfy the biblical criteria of the Magi coming from the east. There were long-standing ties between Herod the Great and Nabatea. Herod's mother was a Nabatean, and he may have spent part of his boyhood at Petra. As king of Judea, Herod maintained political relationship with Nabatea. Aretas IV even gave one of his daughters to Herod's son Antipas for a wife. If you take a look at the screen, you see a treasury at the ancient Nabatean capital of Petra in modern-day Jordan. Photo Diego del Sol, Wikimedia Commons CC by SA 4.0, and this is the same rock community, Hewing rock community that the Edomites control. So given the great distance they traveled, particularly through the heat of the desert, Nabateans no doubt had a significant grasp of astronomy and used it for directions. When they traveled by night, a new star would have caught their attention. The Nabateans were renowned traders who amassed great wealth by controlling many of the trade routes along the Incense Road from Arabia through the capital of Petra and onto the coastal port of Gaza. Along this route, the Nabateans transported frankincense and myrrh from places such as Yemen in Arabia to the Mediterranean. In fact, when the Mashak was born, Nabatea held a virtual monopoly on the frankincense trade. Early church fathers such as Clement of Rome and Tertullian associated Arabia with the land of myrrh and frankincense. Justin Martyr, writing in the middle of the 2nd century, explicitly stated that the Magi came from Arabia. Nabateans had access to gold both through trade but also because it was native to their territory. Strabo noted that the Nabateans did not need to import gold and silver because it was to be found in their land. He wrote, "The Nabateans are a sensible people and are so much inclined to acquire possessions that they publicly fine anyone who has diminished his possessions and also confer honors on anyone who has increased them. Some things are imported wholly from other countries, but others not altogether. So especially in the case of those that are native products, as for example gold and silver and most of the aromatics, whereas brass and iron, as also purple garb, styrax, crocus, costeria, embossed works, paintings, and molded works are not produced in their countries." Brothers and sisters, if you take a look at the screen, you will see the gifts of the Magi may have looked like these. Left, a gold Nabatean pendant with garnet dating to circa 2nd to 1st century BC. It is currently housed in the Schmuck Museum for Zahem or Farzheim. Photo credit Nick Bergin, Center at Ceramic Nabatean Unguenterium, right? Unguenterium, in which perfumes like frankincense were kept. Photo museum.org, public domain, right? A calcite alabaster beehive jar was the type of jar used for myrrh. These are found all along the trade route from the area of modern-day Yemen up to the area of ancient Petra. This one dates to the 2nd century BC. Photo, the British Museum, CC by NCSA 4.0. So to be clear, I'm not the first person who has suggested the Magi were Nabatean. However, I believe this idea has merit and has been largely ignored by many in the academic community, who continue to point to older theories of pre-astrologers from the area of ancient Babylon or Persia, although they rarely mention that this area was under Parthian control at the time of the Mashiach's birth. So in short, Nabatean Magi would arrive from the east, and since they had political dealings with Herod and the Jews already, it would be understandable that they would seek to pay homage to a newborn king of the Jews. As renowned travelers through the desert, they would have been immediately familiar with astronomy. Moreover, they had ample access to the three gifts they brought: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So what is the conclusion, brothers and sisters? The reality is that we cannot know with certainty who enigmatic Magi were, right? A case can be made based ancient writings that they were priests and or astrologers who served as wise men in the course of the Parthian kings who controlled the territory once held by the Babylonians and Persians. This assumes Magi still held the role in the Parthian courts that their caste had earlier had filled for the Persian kings. Take a look at the screen, brothers. You will see a bronze coin on the Nabatean king Artas IV, dating to 3 BC. Photoclassical Numismatic Group, Wikimedia Commons CC by SA 3.0. I also believe the idea of Nabatean Magi has merit and needs to be studied in further details. My hope is that this article contributes to the discussion and advances this idea further. It seems reasonable to me to imagine that the Nabatean king Aretas IV, who was reigning at the time of the Mashiach's birth, would have his own Magi, wise men who might divine from the night skies that a new Jewish king had been born. Perhaps Aretas sent these high-ranking Magi to find the new king and present him with the best gifts their land had to offer in order to honor him. Makes sense, right, brothers and sisters? Regardless of who the Magi actually were, Matthew described of wise men coming to pay homage to the newborn king has the mark of authenticity when seen within the historical backdrop of the ancient Near East. Magi were not mythical, they were real people. They were real people whose history seems to have stretched back hundreds of years and probably spawned the generic title Magos, which was used to describe any person who had wisdom and special knowledge, particularly with magical arts. So in the end, the sad irony in the Christmas narrative is that Gentiles Magi came to honor the newborn king, while the Jewish chief priests and king did not. Very sad, right, brothers and sisters? The irony. So the overview for this lesson today, brothers and sisters, is the three wise men, or Magoi, are significant in Hebrew studies for a number of reasons, including their journey. The wise men traveled over 800 miles from the east of Jerusalem to find the newborn king of the Jewish people, Yehudim people. Their study of the Hebrew Scriptures, the wise men studied the Hebrew Scriptures, particularly the Old Testament messianic prophecies. They were familiar with the words of Balaam, Micah, and Daniel, and believed the Messiah coming was near. Their reason for the Star of Bethlehem: when the wise men saw the Star of Bethlehem, they turned to the sacred scrolls to understand its meaning. They followed the star to find the Messiah. Their gifts: the wise men bought gold, frankincense, and myrrh to Yahusha. Some researchers suggest that the gifts may have had medicinal properties. Their recognition of Eliyahu: the wise men recognized Eliyahu's voice when he spoke to them despite their paganism and superstition. The story of the wise men can be interpreted as a message that Eliyahu tries to reach everyone on earth with his message. So I hope you get a full understanding of who the wise men were. They were never a assigned number to the wise men. The scripture just say wise men. It could be 1, 2, 3, could be 12, could be 20. No one knows the specific number, only that the scripture said they were wise men. Right? So on that note, Bruk Yahuwah, what is about Bruk Yahusha Mashiach, Shina, Shina, Vishina, bless the love and shalom.